right?
Yeah,
there's
equip the red crystal and kneel for 5 seconds next to Deborah Cliff is
You're not gonna accidentally
the
do that.
standout. Like, I don't
that's the
know
craziest.
if a kid's going to figure that out.
And then to
I don't
add
think
on
so.
top of that, what happens next? The tornado picking
Sure.
you up. Like, it's just a whole bunch of, like, obtuse, absurd things. Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Nolan.
And this is episode 442, and it is a guest episode.
Oh, you're not gonna shout that one?
I'm not going to shout that one. I don't think we have a soundbite for it
yeah.
because maybe because we have had so few of them in
It's been a
recent
while.
years.
It's been a while.
But today we have a guest joining us on the show. He is a former video game developer. In 2020, he founded Retro Game Books, which began with the release of the complete history of Rygar, which we're going to have to talk about that a little bit. So I would think that if you're starting a new company, starting with the complete history of Rygar might not be the strongest, but we'll see. Since then, he's published other books like the whole SNES video game maps. I think he's done one for NES as well, and maybe even for Genesis, and even a tome of Metroid pixel art from over 120 different artists.
So sick.
We're so glad to have him here today. Brian, welcome to the show. Would you take just a moment and introduce yourself to our viewers?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Brian. I live in San Francisco. Long time game developer, but it's been a while since then, and really excited to talk about today's game.
Before we begin talking about the game, are you okay with us doing some rapid fire questions? It's questions unrelated to one another that you don't have to think over much. You're not prepared for any of these, but you can just answer from the gut, first thing that comes to mind. Are you down for the challenge?
Yeah, whenever we do icebreakers on a podcast, I just look at my shelf and just pick game
That's
names
smart.
because I'm assuming it's something with that. So let's do it.
It's going to be all over the place.
It
No,
might
no,
not
kinda
be,
random.
It might be related. Here we go. We'll
It
start
might
with
be.
favorites. Favorite dinosaur?
Growing up, it was Ankylosaurus, actually.
That's the one with the hammer tail?
That's right. The turtle one.
So
good knowledge,
That's
Dustin.
so good.
Spiky turtle.
Well, my nephew right now is big into dinosaurs, so he asks me every time I see him what my favorite dinosaur is. Favorite musical genre?
Oh, gosh. I guess just like 90s rock, alternative rock, I guess is what it's still called.
Oasis
Favorite-
reunion tour.
Favorite emoji?
Oh, the one I use the most is like eyes and thumbs up, boring things like that. But I like the thinking face because it kind of says like, I don't know what you're talking about. And it's a little rude.
When
but,
someone hits me
you
with
know.
that at work in Slack, it ruins my day. I'm not gonna
You're
lie.
done for the day?
Yeah, I'm done.
Brian, favorite book?
Ooh, the Wool, the first book in the Silo series is one of my favorites. You know, they made a TV show out of it, but the book's better. Everyone says that. It's true.
Always.
That's one of them.
Favorite superhero?
It's Batman. He's got no powers. He's got a
Same.
dark past. He's got mommy daddy issues. He's clever. He's smart.
Same. Favorite video game console?
Ooh, that's a terrible question. Since it's rapid fire, I'll just go with the NES.
Good
And
answer.
favorite Final Fantasy?
It's actually 7. I know that's a divisive thing to say,
We're
but it's
good.
7.
No, he
and I
asked the
stand by it.
question just so he could talk about Final Fantasy VII again.
All right, we'll move away from favorites, go a little bit more random if we can. Do you have any pets?
I had a dog a long time ago, or a few times, but no, just a 4-year-old kid. So
It's kind of the same. If you had to rename yourself, what name would you pick?
ooh, I like names that invoke like movement and speed. So I like Rush or something like that. I have a long list of dog names, but I could repurpose them for myself if I ever needed to.
I heard Sonic is a good one.
No.
Terrible.
What is a place you most want to travel?
I went to Japan when I was a teenager, and I desperately want to go back and take my family and just see cherry blossoms and history and just, you know, raid their retro gaming collections.
I think we're going next year. I'm excited.
Yes. What is your spirit vegetable?
What is that?
spirit vegetable.
Stop.
Well,
Interview?
It's a-
Is that a tech interview?
I don't have one. I try to actively avoid them like a lot of people do. I don't know. Carrot?
What's your spirit protein?
What's your guilty pleasure snack? Maybe that one's a little bit more easy.
Oh, this is an easy one because I eat it way too often. It drives my wife crazy. It's basically just croutons dipped in blue cheese dressing, and I do it so often.
That sounds amazing.
That sounds so good.
What
and
a
my wife would
snack.
also be livid.
What's a non-gaming hobby you have?
It used to be jujitsu for 8 years until I destroyed my body. Now it's safer things like cycling and hiking, normal older people things. And eventually it'll be, what's that one that's like tennis but smaller for people with bad knees?
Pickleball.
Pickleball.
Yeah, it'll probably be that eventually.
We're right on the cusp of that, and I'm depressed. We might play it.
Just a couple more. Are you a morning owl or a night person?
I'm a night person. I get most of my work done the last few hours of the day.
And which retro video game has you collecting a mythical creature's body parts as quickly as possible so that you're not too late to whip it good?
Oh, that sounds like Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, if I had to guess.
I think you're correct. Join us as we talk with Brian about our retro game of the week, Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest.
Overview.
Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest is a 1987 action role-playing game developed and published by Konami for the NES. It is not our first Castlevania game on the podcast, nor is it our second or third or fourth. I believe this is our fifth Castlevania on the cast. Nolan and
How is
Kenny,
that
can you do it?
I can
We-
do it. So
This might be the series we've played the most of.
we've played
that's scary.
Might
Castlevania
be.
1,
Yes. Well, yes.
Correct.
Castlevania 64.
Yes.
We
Which is
played
also just
Symphony
called
of the Night.
Castlevania. We played Symphony of the Night.
We've played Aria of Sorrow. No, we have played the other one. What's the other GBA one?
Dissidents?
Yeah, yes,
that
but
it?
I don't think we played that one either.
We haven't played that one.
What's the name of it? There's a third one.
Ooh.
I don't remember either.
Kenny, is your mind just blank?
Wait, I feel like that was a clue.
This
Oh,
is.
the Circle of the Moon.
Yes, Circle
Yeah.
of the Moon, which is the other GBA one.
Yeah.
That was a great
and you're
clue. I
saying
was
there's
like
another
Castlevania
one?
0?
No, I think this is the fifth
Like, that's
one.
Got
not a
it.
thing.
Well,
Okay, got
no,
it.
no, Shrek Castle at the Castle.
That's not a Castlevania game.
Oh, I got confused.
It has a castle in it.
Yeah, so this is our fifth one on the cast. Brian, you could have selected any game. In fact, one of the fun things that you allowed us to do is you gave us a set of games that all mean something to you. And this is on the list, and we randomly selected on our last episode from that small list that you gave us, and this was the one selected. Why did you pick, as a part of the games that we could talk about, Simon's Quest?
It was one of those games I grew up with. I was 7 years old. My brother and I, we were enthralled with this game. It meant a lot to us. Yes, it has so many shortcomings, including those that we're going to talk about today and those that I experienced even as a kid. But it meant a lot to me. Like the way it was tied to the Nintendo Power, the map, trading off with your brother, the fact that you don't own a lot of games when you're a kid. This was a meaningful game. We didn't have Castlevania 1. We didn't have 3. So this was our Castlevania game.
Wow. And I'm assuming since you were 7 years old when you played it, y'all didn't have an online walkthrough or guide or anything?
There was Nintendo Power, and I think maybe like a follow-up, and there was the map in there that was not in the U.S. instruction manual but was in the Japanese one. Without that Nintendo Power, there's almost no chance you would have been able to finish this game. There are clues in this game
yeah.
We'll talk about that are impossible to have figured out. Yeah, we had to swap secrets with kids in the schoolyard, but really it was that guide.
Was the U.S. manual for the game at all helpful?
It has a few
does
things in
mention that the NPCs lie in it, so
Yes, it does, yeah.
at least it tells you that, but that doesn't
Okay.
mean a lot to a little kid.
This game's such a troll, man.
It is, for sure. And the manual, the manual is a typical manual of the time, so it tells you what the items do and
Sure.
that there are other whips that you should be looking for and whatever. But
Yeah.
There are things that if they weren't in there could have been a big annoyance that it did call out. It calls out breaking blocks with holy water so that you're aware that that's a thing. It calls out that the point of the stakes is to get to the end of the level, that you need that to unlock the body parts. Things that if you were just playing the game blind without the manual would have been also hard. It doesn't cover all of those. We'll obviously talk about those, but there are definitely some things in that manual that are helpful.
Brian, just so you have a little bit of context, I believe, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, the last Castlevania game we played was the first one, and it was for episode 383, which was a year ago. So I had forgotten a few things, and some people on my first play were calling me out for forgetting the movement being kind of the same, but it will be interesting to talk about that in this episode because it's always interesting to see how developers decide to do the sequel, the immediate sequel, because it's like, what do we keep? What do we change? And in this game, they definitely kept some things, but they definitely tried something new here, which will be very interesting.
Right.
There were a lot of those early NES games where it was first one's one way, second one's uniquely different, and then they kind of return or take a little bit of each.
Mario?
Mario's that way, Zelda's that way. There was a lot of sort of... it's not unnormal for the second one to kind of be the outlier, be a little bit the black sheep.
Yeah. On the first Castlevania, we all gave it unanimously New Game Plus status.
Yeah, of course.
May or may not be a surprise. It wasn't even a Patreon poll, by the way. I think it was just random.
Just a random
selected.
poll.
Yeah. So in Simon's Quest, it's a true sequel. Even in the story, you are Simon Belmont, bravest of the brave, boldest of the bold, a Gothic warrior respected by kings. This is what the manual says. Sometime after destroying the evil Count Dracula in a duel to the death at Castlevania, a beautiful maiden appeared and warned that you were possessed by the Count's curse, and your only hope of destroying the curse is to find the 5 body parts, there's only 5, of Count Dracula, return them to Castlevania, and burn them. That's how you can heal yourself of the curse and be done with Dracula once and for all.
Does it communicate all that to children in the game?
No, I read the whole setup, and it's only a paragraph long. But in the manual, it says,
in the manual,
it's pretty gruesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And unfortunate that happened to him.
To Simon or Dracula?
To Simon. Dracula, I don't care so much about. Your favorite podcast has T-shirts now.
We've got 2. One is Castlevania inspired, and the other is Portal inspired.
There are a limited amount of them, and they're really, really well done. Yeah. So you want to pick one up today if you haven't gotten yours yet. ngppodcast.myshopify.com. Get yours while supplies last.
Gameplay.
So the setup here is a lot like the first one, like we mentioned, in terms of when you first boot it up. It's like, this looks familiar. But now it's open world, kind of. And this is interesting because we mentioned it, that Zelda tried this same thing, they did the same thing with Zelda 2. But in this game, instead of starting outside of a castle and then entering the castle, you are actually in a town, a town you're going to return to often, a safe zone. Well, during the day, it's safe. But it's still a platformer. It is still, for the most part, the same control scheme. And then you're platforming the same. However, your goal is very different. In Castlevania 1, you were going to the end of the stage through very unfair enemy placements, through very unfair jumps, and Kenny, the staircase, yes. Kenny had...
Stairs are hard.
He had big issues with the stairs.
Stairs are hard. I stand by that opinion.
The stairs are still here. I think they're a little better. I'm interested to hear what you have to say, Kenny. But yeah, it's very similar. But then the goal of the game is actually completely different.
When I booted it up, I did not feel like it was similar. The main thing being almost right away in Castlevania, you were in Castlevania, and that's where you spend all of your time. But in this one, you're in Transylvania, which is a different Vania. and you're only in the castle at the very end for seconds. Like the centerpiece, in my experience, of all Castlevania games so far is the castle itself.
Interesting. That's true.
And in this one, you're in the world, and
You're
so
outside.
it felt very. Obviously, it felt the same in some ways. Some of the enemies and enemy patterns and the whip, that's so unique for this time in particular. But being in the open
And
world,
you go into other castles besides the last castle.
we'll call them mansions.
Sure,
He doesn't
but,
want to
like,
give it the official
the
title.
vibe is the same. Ooh, excuse my frog.
The vibe is the same. Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. The vibe is the same.
But Ryan, you were saying y'all didn't have a reference point as kids. Like this was your
This was the new one.
this was your
Well-
entry to
well,
Castlevania.
I had played the original. We just didn't have it, so I didn't get to spend a lot of time with it. So I knew that, this was not a linear thing. This is like I'm moving left, right, up, and down. Metroid came out a year before. We already kind of got that exposure to like, oh, you don't just go right anymore, right? Like we kind of like knew there was something like
Yeah.
that, but it was still novel for Castlevania. And then you throw in like, we're talking about freedom, right? Like not just movement, but what do I spend my money on? Do I save up money and go back to the town to get the whip upgrade, or just press forward? Do I have enough XP that adds to your power and hit points? Like how important are those things to me? Like, do I wait for the next day cycle when it's safer to traverse? Is it worth my time? Like, you have to make a lot of decisions in this. And like, I knew that was different than the original. I knew it's not just like looking for wall meat isn't the only like secret in this game, right? There's a lot more going on.
Not even wall meat, unfortunately, which is, I think, a staple of the Castlevania series.
Well, it's almost like they
True.
were trying to rebrand the genre. Like the exploration aspect is something that we really need to focus on, because like we had mentioned, you're talking to townspeople to kind of get a sense of what in the world you're supposed to be doing, because this game also, unlike the first one, has a lot more verticality to it. Like there's just bigger spaces that you're navigating, so it's very easy to just get overwhelmed and not know where to go. So those villagers aren't very helpful. I'll say that. And if you don't, I used the guide this week. I'll be fully transparent, because it's got RPG elements to this game, unlike the first one. Like there's a lot more here to manage, and so I did use a guide, but I can't imagine not using a guide. I know you did,
I
Dustin.
cannot believe that you would use a guide.
So Dustin's the guide guy. He uses one if there is one available, even when he shouldn't. And I typically
even in games where
refrain
it ruins the experience.
just to give you some
Tekken.
history. But like I had to.
Yeah, and which is completely fine. I don't think you
Thank
need to
you.
say it like that. Like so, like
I felt
defeated.
gross, but
Brian, even as a kid, was using Nintendo Power, right? That
would've
was a
too.
form of a guide. And can you get through this game without a guide? Yes, but it would be a different kind of experience.
I mean, it would take you a really long time to accidentally crouch at a wall and use an knife.
Yeah,
there's
equip
someone-
the red crystal and kneel for 5 seconds next to Deborah Cliff is
You're not gonna accidentally
the
do that.
standout. Like, I don't
that's the
know if
craziest.
a kid's gonna figure that out.
And then to
I don't
add
think
on
so.
top of that, what happens next? The tornado picking
Sure.
you up. Like, it's just a whole bunch of obtuse, absurd things. However, there is at least a villager that hints at that. So if you take enough time and talk to enough people, here's the setup for the game. Okay, so again, you're in Transylvania and you are traveling between towns in kind of open world environments through the forest, and you are going to new mansions, and in the mansions that are castle-like, that's kind of what Kenny was referencing earlier, you are going through those mansions, finding or purchasing a stake, and think steak wooden stab, not
Don't eat
steak delicious dinner.
Yeah.
Correct.
And
Vampires.
You are taking that stake to an orb on the stage and using the stake to shatter the orb to retrieve a body part of Dracula's. But you're doing this all, and Brian had mentioned it earlier, this is also new to the franchise at this time. There's a day-night cycle that is changing the enemies and the environment, what you're able to do in town and not able to do. based on those day-night cycles that are completely tethered to an in-game clock. And that is a whole new dynamic for this game as well.
I feel like
yeah,
that's...
and they did more. Like, oh, go ahead, please.
No, you go. You're the guest.
The other great thing about the day and night cycle is, so enemies take more hits. They can be a little more crazy. They drop more hearts, right? The town has the zombies. Like, they did more than just like, let's make this a little harder. They put some cool elements in there. I always wondered, and I'm wondering what you all think, when you kill the zombies in the town, are those the townspeople possessed, or are those just zombies that came in? When I was a kid, I always just thought those are the townspeople that
I don't
want
to think
ghouls.
about
That's a
that.
terrible way
I'm
to
not
think
gonna
about
lie.
it.
I mean, they're there. They're later. So
Yeah.
No, I'm assuming they all went inside,
Yes.
sealed up their doors,
Same.
stayed safe.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
and
hope
we're
so.
protecting them.
he's
I
got
hope
like
so, too.
trauma from being a kid, being like, I don't want to do
Taking
this,
out
but
all the
you're making...
townspeople.
Yeah. That day-night cycle is I think quite innovative for the year this came out.
Sure.
Obviously ahead of its time, because that's in so many games now, and the mechanics tethered to the day cycle and the night cycle. I didn't mind it. The only thing that sucks about it is that every time it turns night and day, there is a text box that comes up extremely slow and tells you some poetry about it becoming night. I don't remember what it says. But
It's on his shirt.
it's
It
on,
says, "What
it's
a
on
horrible
Brian's
night
shirt.
to
Yeah, if you're watching video, you can read it.
have a curse."
And that part's annoying to anyone, I'm sure. But farming for currency, which your currency in this game is the hearts. So in the first game it was ammo strictly. That's what you use to use your items. But in this game, some of the items don't even take hearts, which was nice. Like the holy water, because of how much you have to spam it. I think they knew that
It's only
they were
the really
annoying.
nice weapons, like
Yeah,
the
sure,
really powerful ones.
But that's what you're using to purchase things in town. And farming at night on some of those enemies, yes, they're harder, but I kind of enjoyed that a lot.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
As long as you have an upgraded whip. Well, first of all, it will never make sense to me that hearts are
I know.
not
I know.
health. You know,
I love that
hearts
about this
are
series,
ammo and currency, and in this game, connected to experience points.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
there's
Don't
RPG.
don't think of them as hearts. Think of them as life force.
No, okay.
Sure.
All they
They're
do is take the
hearts.
life from Zelda in the top left and shift it over. That's not different enough.
I know.
And
it's
meanwhile,
bad.
they
I'm
had
just
money
trying
bag
to-
sprites.
Yeah,
They could have
Right,
reused
right.
those money bags.
yeah.
There's options
yeah.
here.
But you're using your hearts for not for health. It is not connected to health at all. You're only using them for some of the powered up items that you can use as weapons. You are using them as currency to purchase things, and they're tethered to your experience points. You do have a max that you can get. I don't know if it's based on your level. I think you can just get 256 or something like that.
256.
I
Yeah.
don't know
Which
if I
isn't
ever
that
got that
code? Isn't there's a code? I feel like 256 is
Yes,
the number
there's
like that you can.
reasons that that's
Yeah, there's reasons.
the amount.
So you can only hit that amount. So it encourages you. I don't mind this to use those as your currency or your and there's plentiful. So I grinded some in this game because there were certain sections where I was like, there's a superfluous amount of enemies right here that are giving me good sized hearts, and so I'm just going to grind here for a little bit while I wait maybe for the town to open back up or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was a good balance. I wasn't having to grind like it's Dragon Warrior 1,
Sure.
but I was having to, but I was just grinding just enough to make it still enjoyable for me.
That's a little risky though, because there is both a day-night cycle, but there is also an overarching clock that is
Yeah.
happening
Boo.
that changes how the ending of the game happens depending on how much time you spend in game. So depending on where you decide to do that grinding, if you're in one of the I'm going to say
Mansions.
castles, but yes, they're mansions. They're not all castles.
silly.
You're in a part of the zone where sort of time in the overworld isn't marching forward, but in a If you decide to do that in the overworlds, you're getting day-night cycles, but you're also risking getting a less good ending by taking longer to get through the game. So
Let's
a
be
little bit
honest,
of
no one's
trade-off
ever
there.
gotten the good ending.
Well, if we're on endings, let's talk about endings, because I've heard people complain saying that they think that the developers got the endings mixed up, that the bad ending is actually the best ending, and that the good ending is actually the worst ending.
Because of what
Or-
happens.
Yeah, because of what happens.
Or maybe they wanted you to not rush through the game. They
So
were
it's a punishment.
rewarding you for taking your time and exploring and enjoying the game that they built, and it was intentional.
Brian, do you remember as a kid? Well, first of all, did y'all ever beat it, you and your brother? And if you did,
That's the
what kind of
question.
ending you got?
We did, and I'm sure it was whatever the slowest one is. And I've heard about this, mix-up controversy. I don't have a
Yeah,
strong
yeah.
opinion about it. It's kind of like the endings of the endings. They're not
Sure.
that glamorous anyway. It's like a single screen with a
Yeah,
gravestone, what have you. So, not a big deal.
Yeah. I was not going slow because I had a guide, so I was, and if I needed to take my time, I was doing it in a mansion. So I honestly probably missed the cycle once or twice having to wait for the town to reopen or whatever the case might be. And I didn't get the best ending. So they have it
Wow.
tight. Like the way that they developed it is that you're not going to get it your first time. I mean,
Yeah.
especially if you're not using a guide. But even if
Especially
you're using a guide. And so that the idea, I think, is replay this game again and again, and you might get a better ending.
That isn't that how good endings should be though? You shouldn't stumble upon the good ending your first try.
Yeah, but that's really tight. That's
a whole-
really tight.
Right.
It's a whole
Like
Then you
Brian
have to
said, it's
speed run to get it.
right. You
I
have
mean,
to
yeah.
like
You do.
yeah, no life it. But like the ending's a screen. So in these kinds of
Sure.
games, I'm less offended. But like newer RPGs, maybe I would care.
I agree.
One huge thing here with this game, especially coming off us on the show from the first game, is the difficulty. The first game's difficulty is renown. It is known as being very, very trying, and it is. And it took me a long time to beat it that week, just because it's so punishing, and some of the areas are just straight up unfair. This game, they took a not completely different approach, but very different in that it is not punishing at all. It restarts you where you died. That solves the difficulty issue from the first one, and I think it's an interesting choice because, or it just makes me question like, okay, they wanted the player to explore and not be punished for exploring. Which, dude, think about it. If you were like super far from town or something, and you died and were just about to get to somewhere you needed to be, and it puts you back at the beginning, that would
At the church
I
that
would
you
quit.
last healed at.
yeah.
That is worse, but it's not like there's no punishment here. You lose all your hearts,
Yeah.
which is huge, especially if you've been like saving up for some kind of big upgrade.
Sure, but you can fill that 256 in 20 minutes.
Yeah, it doesn't take too long. But like to say that there's not, I agree, Nolan. It's easier. I don't think it's trying to be as punishing, but there are some maybe not like punishing mechanics, but some very frustrating mechanics here that are still going to make this feel like an NES game.
Oh, those
You're
enemies
still
are
gonna,
still
like Dustin
yeah.
did in the first play. You're still going to get knocked into the water at some point.
Knock back.
And right, the knockback is going to put you into places that you don't want to be. And there are moments where you're going to be angry at this game, even if it's not for the same reasons as the first title.
Yeah, I agree.
Hidden blocks can go to HE double hockey sticks because
Oh,
Those-
I have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, what's up with that, Frank?
let's hear hidden block.
You used to be a developer. Why'd they do that?
Oh, I can't answer that question. I can just tell you why I hate it and why they shouldn't have done. I mean, well, okay, let me just get into it. In fact, I would take a step back and say that the mansions are actually the part that really holds this game back. It's like more of like a holistic theme. And so let me just tell you about that, and then
Yes.
I'll get to the blocks. So I found the mansions to be very like uninspired and repetitive, especially when you consider the first Castlevania. Yeah, this game has more diverse environments. It has forests, it has lakes, it has blah blah blah, right? But when you get into a mansion, it just feels so flat. So like just row after row, the backgrounds are boring. It's an opportunity wasted. This is like where they could have really shined and brought in some of that original Castlevania flair, and they're very copied. And on top of that, you only have a couple of bosses, right? They didn't even bother to put a few more in there. You can even skip one of them. Yeah, like it's like
three.
It just feels
only 2 of them are mandatory. Like,
right. It's bizarre. I mean, I guess the challenge is like I want to defeat the boss, get the item kind of thing.
Sure.
Great. The other thing about the mansions is this is where like the slowdown, like the performance issues really start to hit because there's too many things on the screen. It kills the flow, especially in a game where precision jumping is so important. Now, the part that kills me the most, now let's talk about the blocks. I wrote this down because I wanted to get this right. I'm just going to read it if that's
Love
okay.
it.
please.
Hidden pits in the mansions vastly kill the flow of the game. You are taught early in the first mansion during a real haha we got you moment as you plummet through a false platform after a lengthy march. For the remainder of the game, you crawl slowly through repetitive mansions out of fear, sprinkling holy water everywhere. And that's like the whole mansions get transformed into this slow crawl.
That's
you just
so
gotta
true.
do this anytime
It
you're on a
killed the
platform.
design.
That's so true. One of the things that I think that they tried to do, so I'm gonna give them a little bit of credit for this, is that they placed enemies typically on the platforms that had missing blocks, and so their walking pattern, you'd see it halt early because of the missing blocks. Now, again, that's having to slow pacing because you're having to wait to see if the enemy is going to turn back before coming fully to you. So I totally agree with the pacing. I think they tried to resolve it with that, but yeah, I mean, I was inching my way through these mansions.
It like changed the look of the block slightly.
Yes, exactly.
You know, it's still annoying to have to
something.
go slow and like pay attention, but at least it's not like like just from a design standpoint, it doesn't even look good because you're spamming the holy water so that you can see if it's a platform, and it phases through it and it just looks stupid. Like you mentioned gotcha moments, Brian. There are like so many of those in this game. This game's such a troll game. I never know why they go that route. Like there have been other games we played on the podcast that have done that same thing where it's just like moment after moment of like, haha, like you didn't see that coming, and you as the player is like, nope, I didn't. But
and the thing that might be worse is that it's not instant death pits typically, which I would normally be glad about. But it makes it even worse because not only does it take huge chunks of your health because you fall into spikes or something, but in some of these mansions, you have to trek back all the way through the mansion to get to that spot again. And then if you misjudge your jump, you're falling in it again. So it's just like I would rather my character die. Like just kill me and let me start back at the beginning.
I'll agree too with you, Brian, that the castles were a really big opportunity. The mansions were a good opportunity for them to not go back to the roots. Sounds wrong because the game's not that different than the first one, but that was what was so great about the first game is the different areas were super varied and full of charm and look and feel, and I wanted that to be more like along the Zelda format where like you get to a new dungeon and you're like pumped because it's just going to be like themed, and the missed opportunity of putting a boss at the end of each one of those that is also themed and different. I'm maybe they just didn't have the capacity in that cartridge to fit all that in, or maybe they spent so much time on the exploration outdoors part. I don't know what it is, but I agree. I wanted that part of the game to be more frequent maybe and feel better, but they didn't do that.
One of the things they did that was connected but different was with the usable items. So I was nervous in the first play because I don't think in the first play I got any of the items that I was familiar with.
I don't think you did.
But there are some that you get later as a part of the game. You purchase them from weird guys in robes and you use them I think in the same way, the up and the action button. I think that's the same way from the first one. We don't have to go through all of the items. I would love to hear from all of us, maybe. Brian, is there a particular item, maybe other than holy water, that you used most or preferred, you liked?
Yeah, the one that stands out for me, I mean, there's some OP items that you get towards the end, and obviously they're really good because they're really effective. But the one that stands out for me is Dracula's rib because it's just the surprising moment. I remember we like we equipped it and found out it was a shield, and it's kind of like surprising when you figure it out that way, and it's pretty cool. Also, you're like, this is not just something I need to finish the game. It's an item. It's something I can use. It's really fun.
Yeah, I love that they made those Dracula parts that you're collecting things that you can actually use.
Yeah.
All of them are, I think, except maybe the very last thing, the ring. I think that just gets you into Castlevania, but all the others usable. Yeah.
So the holy beam, or like the one that does consume hearts, it's like fiery, like projectile. Yeah.
Sacred Flame.
Can you just
Yeah, that's the one.
That one's sick.
Stun locks. It's
It's
good.
great.
It's so strong. Yeah.
Actually so great. But mine's still holy water. Mine's holy water from every Castlevania game. Maybe with a couple of exceptions where they just made it feel really bad. But it's in the first one, it's so good. In this one, it's less good. But you do have to spam it, and the fact that there's no cost to use it, me being a fan of that item, I used it constantly. So I was spamming holy water like crazy.
You were checking every single
yeah,
brick just to make sure you weren't missing a secret.
And as a weapon, I was still using it, just because I like free. When there's a free cost item, I'm gonna do that.
And just because y'all want me to, I'm reminding you that in the first Castlevania, it's not called holy water; it's a fire bomb. So
that was a translation issue, and we won't talk about it.
Not my fault.
No, it's not your
Kenny,
fault.
did you have a item that you preferred?
Yeah, I also like the Sacred Flame, but like really I was just a fan of the fact that the whips had good upgrade progression.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
A lot of times you'll get upgrades in these games and they just feel sort of pointless or not helpful. The fact that sometimes you got extra length out of that weapon, sometimes you got notable amounts of increased damage, and really felt like your progression through the game depended on being able to get those better versions of the weapons, just felt really good. That was a great, like, I've gotten a thing, now I feel better, and it looks cool. Like, you can't beat that. So, yeah. I loved how they did the whip progression.
I mean, I think I'm going to just go with you. I think I avoided, or like I skipped over one of the whips because the manual said, hey, you're about to get another one, so you don't need to spend hearts on this one. But from going from the leather whip to the thorn whip to the chain whip, morning star, and then the flame whip at the end that sets the enemies aflame if it doesn't kill them in one hit. Like, that feels good,
That's good
especially
progression.
for 1987.
Yeah. That's a lot of
87?
options, and each one felt like an upgrade, yeah.
Oh, yeah. When you're able to I've said it before, right? When we do platformers, I need one of two things to change. Both things are changing in this game. Like, your character is getting stronger, especially with the experience leveling, which that wasn't in the first one, correct?
No, there's
Did
no
you level up?
there's
Yeah.
no
Definitely
leveling in
not.
the first one.
In this one, you get more health and you get stronger.
You do. I kind of didn't notice it as much as I wanted to. Yeah, I don't
Really?
know. I felt like the weapon upgrades were the big jumps, but it's cool that it's there. I like that it existed. But you're right. Yes,
Yeah.
you do get stronger as you go, and that feels good. It's good progression.
I think we've mentioned it. Let's before we conclude the gameplay section, talk about the whole puzzling nature of this game, which is a lot more than the first one. In fact, some people in Discord this week, or at least one, were saying this, and I want to hear your thoughts, that this is kind of the start of, or the progenitor of, the whole Metroidvania set of subgenre.
I don't think it's just specifically this game, and there's other games that also sort of did first things, and some of the things that they even did in this game were inspired from other previous games.
Metroid 1.
But yes, and I think there's a
Just probably the first Metroidvania, some would say.
Is the
I think the
But didn't
devs
that come
were-
out the same
were-
time?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I don't know which
Metroid's
one.
a year before, about
A year
a year before Castlevania 2.
Yeah, similar time, but I think it was before. But in talking about inspiration from this game, the developers didn't point towards Metroid. They said a game called The Maze of Gallius is the thing that had a bigger impact on kind of
They lied.
how they did the exploration on the world map. And so I just say that to simply say, yes, this game had big impact. You can certainly see its thumbprints on the rest of the series, but it's not like this is the only piece of the cake for developing what sort of became these Metroidvanias.
I want to hear Brian's take on this. Do you have a favorite Castlevania in the series?
Ooh.
For me, it's probably 3. I mean, I've since gone back and played it through many
Okay.
times. I just think it's, the different characters, the combinations, the choices you have to make, the backtracking in the clock tower, like the fact that like the map opens up even further when you get farther and it's different every time you play it. Like, I like that, Trevor in this case is still very like he has the same gameplay, the same like sudden slow movements and like landing and all that, but it opens up when you start using other characters, and I think it looks beautiful. So that's probably mine.
But to the puzzle point, Dustin, of this game, we mentioned it earlier. Some of them are completely nonsense, and to call them puzzles, I think, is generous. I wanted this game to have a lot more puzzling, Zelda-style puzzling. This one was quite empty in between the big moments of a puzzle. One of them is where you have to use a red gem against a wall while crouching for 5 seconds. That's not a puzzle. That's inherently hidden from the player for some reason. And I like there's not many others to really speak to. I just kind of wanted more out of the game in that sense, but obviously you can see the origins of them starting to think about Metroidvania style and like wanting to get to the Symphony of the Night, but it was going to be a long time from now. But they still tried that here. It was the first attempt at it, and that's what you ended up with. And we'll get to the translation stuff in Age, but I just wanted more out of the puzzles.
Yeah.
What drove me crazy was not the fact that these were kind of obtuse and like you wouldn't have known them without guides or or the older kid telling you how to beat it on the playground or whatever. But the fact that like it really bothers me that they decided to go with untrustworthy NPCs. Because in games like this where you have stuff like that, it's fine if it's difficult to discover. I don't mind if you literally have to have been to every single town and talked to every single NPC, and if you listen to them and put together clues that each one are going to tell you, all together you're going to realize, oh, I need to hold the red gem, oh, I need to crouch in prayer for 5 seconds, and oh, here's where it needs to happen. But like you collect those pieces of information separately, and then you can believe it and go find it. Sure, that's doable. It takes a long time. I don't feel like that's even the case here. The game literally tells you, well, NPCs are going to give you information, but they might be lying to you. So like, what?
Well, what? Why?
And then I never felt like there was enough. And again, I was playing with a guide. Maybe
Why?
there are some clues here that kind of tell you that, but you're not going to stumble across that. There's not a logical sort of way to get there. And so I kind of agree. It felt like, I don't know, either they're baiting you to have to call their 900 number, which was a thing back in the day. I don't know if this game had it, but some games were literally we're going to be hard so that you have to call in and like you pay us money, which is, I don't know, the NES version of like everything wrong with gaming that we see today with microtransactions. That's all they could do. Or they were just trying to be difficult and make it feel rewarding, but they didn't do that well. And it was frustrating that there were so many of those elements, not just like the one, lots of them.
One of the things that I just thought about just now is that I wonder, you can find these books hidden throughout the mansions and the world, and the books have a clue. And I think all of those are trustworthy. I wonder if all the things you need to know are in the books, and if you
I hope so.
Find all of those, then you ignore the liars in town that you're trying to help and save.
Right.
And or if they turn into the ghouls, you're murdering, all of their family members, as Brian did as a child.
Maybe they are the zombies.
Yeah.
they deserve to die.
I'm less offended if all of the information is there
In the
but
books,
It's
still
so hard to find and put together here
Agreed.
that it feels virtually impossible, and it shouldn't. It should feel achievable without outside help, and that's problematic.
Aged.
Either rightly or wrongly, I'm obviously going to compare a lot of things in this game to Castlevania.
Mm-hmm.
Rightly.
I was disappointed not in the quality of music. You can see in the first play. You can't hear in the first play because the music is way too quiet, but you can see in the first play that I was feeling the music. However, I felt that there was a lack of music, that there were a few tracks in this game. In fact, I think I'll have to look again, that there are maybe like 6 tracks. And I remember being shocked in Castlevania, the first one, that there's like 16 tracks. And so, yes, the music was really good, but I did feel like, man, we're not getting a variety here.
No, it's true. There are less songs in Castlevania 2 compared to 1 and 3. Like, it's just a fact. I think of it like this. Castlevania 3 has the best soundtrack of the 3. Castlevania 2 has the best song of any game, because I think Bloody Tears is like the greatest thing that this game actually produced. That plus the whole Metroidvania kind of trajectory.
Which one is Bloody Tears? When does that play?
That's the one that plays during the Cursed Night, so you hear it quite a bit.
Oh yeah, it's good.
That one's really so good. There's only there are 3 composers credited to the game. One of them was also one of the Castlevania 1 composers, Seto Terashima. So the fact that there's there's so few in this one, I'm questioning, like, was this game just kind of like didn't have the room for it? Like they spent a lot of time on the exploration portion and designing these like areas, and I'm like, maybe they just ran out of resources, time, I don't know, to fit in the songs. But it's like,
maybe
space on the cartridge, you can only have 256 hearts and you can only have 6 songs. That's about all they had.
That's the trade-off.
I mean, it's a fair thing to point out. There are like limitations there. I doubt that was the only thing driving that decision, but
I think the thing driving the decision was the day-night cycle. And so they said, we're going to have 1 song for the day, 1 song for the night, and then we'll do a song in the mansion. That's 3 right there. That's half of the soundtrack.
Which already is a lot more variety than we get in some games. I think it's fair to point out that there's less here than some, but I didn't like play through this and ever have a moment where I was like, oh man, this song again? Because they're well done.
Yeah.
And so
I'll listen to this all day.
I have no complaints about the music. I thought it was good. Again, some of the other titles may have more variety, which is welcome, but like, it's not like the music here is bad. It was well done.
I've never heard a Castlevania track and not liked it ever in any of the games.
The slowdown might be the worst I've experienced in any video game.
No.
Come on, tell me another one. I mean, Mega Man has some bad slowdown, some of the classics, but I think this one was the most slowdown I've ever experienced in a game.
There are moments that it's very notable and enough that it's worth pointing out. I'll agree with Nolan's no, just because that's a really bold statement.
Tell me a different one.
I don't
Captain
know
Planet
every video game
that we played. That Captain Planet game like ran at 1 frame a second. It was awful.
That game just shouldn't even exist, though.
Right.
Yeah. It was a really bold statement to make as a blanket statement. Nolan is right. I'm sure there's a worse game, but it's a problem here.
Yeah, it is a
worse
problem.
game. There's worse games, of course. I know you meant probably worse when it comes to the slowdown. I have not experienced a more slowed down experience before. Yeah. Again, I've said this before on the podcast. It doesn't always bother me because with platforming, it helps me sometimes to slow things down. Or if enemies are... this was a game, if there are more than 2 enemies joining you on the screen, there is going to be slowdown. And that happens a lot. And I know a lot of people are bothered by this. This has never bothered me unless there's poor enemy placement. That is some here, but what I'm about to say, the how enemies respawn. Enemies are constantly respawning here. I've always used that to my benefit, whether it's for the grind or I wasn't able to do it here, but often if they respawn, you can move the screen and come back and despawn them as well. I wasn't able to figure that out here, but that didn't bother me in this game. I don't know if it bothered y'all.
No, that never bothers me either. I get the complaint about it for sure, especially if you kind of like to play your games at a slower pace, or some of these old platformers can be overwhelming, but especially in a game where the more hearts you have, the better. I was fine with it. The thing that was interesting, again, compared to the first one, they do overwhelm me with a lot of enemies in this game, But in the first one, it's like if you don't deal with it, you can't go forward. Like if you don't dodge it perfectly or if you don't take it out, you can't go forward. In this one, there are some screens where you could just bail. You're just I'm good, and just leave. In fact, I think Brian pointed out you can do that in a boss fight. There's a boss where you just walk out the other side and done.
Or you throw your laurels and then just walk through
Your
them
laurels.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, you've got a little protection item. Simon's Vert is crazy. You can just jump over half of these enemies and walk out of the room
he's got
as
ups.
well. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a video game developer like Brian was, and like Kenny strives to be, but I would. Kenny's development corner. What are you talking about? We haven't got a whole segment on the podcast.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
I felt that some of that, I don't know, mechanical side of the developmental side of the game suffered some. I know it's 1987, but I don't know. I felt its age there for sure.
Yeah. Graphically,
NES.
great. NES, but
1987. And definitely an improvement from the first one, right? There's more texture, more.
I really liked the backdrops. There were a lot of different opportunities for them to do like pretty detailed ones, and they delivered. The mountaintops with the snowy peaks and stuff like that. The castles, like, yes, they were samey,
Mansions.
but the mansions were samey, but the design of them was solid, and I enjoyed the look of them. So yeah, I think graphically the game actually ages quite well.
I don't disagree. I like that they simplified the UI, took some of that off the screen so you could see more, and just sort of had your health bar and then had your information in the pop-up instead of kind of keeping it on screen like some of the others. I know that's a personal preference. Some people probably like having that kind of status stuff sort of at hand, but I loved that it was clean like that. And I agree, it looks good. I don't know if it's the best looking. I don't think Brian's opinion on 3 being really beautiful is unfair by any means. It might outshine this one, but it looks pretty good. And for a game that was sort of going for realism with the village and the sizes of things and the limitations they had, I agree. Looks pretty good. Yes, the mansions are kind of dull inside, but they tried to give you a world, and I appreciate that.
We're talking about dull inside. Dude, you know what was one of my biggest disappointments here? Is that the last 2 areas of the game, when it should ramp up the challenge and the difficulty, the last 2 areas have no enemies. Once you get into Castlevania, there are 0 enemies other than the boss himself. The area leading up to the castle, 0 enemies. So you're only walking through these areas like you're building up this whole time to get to Castlevania, and then you're there for such a short amount of time. Again, I that's unforgivable.
It is interesting.
For me, that's actually something I loved about the end of this game. And I actually think it shows like thematic maturity. Like it shows that they're willing to take like a narrative gamble here. And for me, it paid off. I know it's controversial, but I look at it like this. Like the closer you get to the castle, that's where all the destruction happened. That's where all the despair is. That's where the villages are more gray. There's less people. They're saying more like sad kind of things. It's building up this tension. And when you get there, you think you're going to be facing something, but really you're like, no, I destroyed what was here. Like it's in ruin. It's quiet.
Yeah.
You're walking through this quiet area. And then I almost feel like it's like a reward to the player saying like, you went through all these obtuse puzzles. You made it this far. We're going to actually just let you walk in here and you feel this tension building. The part that makes it fall apart for me is you can just cheese Dracula with the sacred flame. And even as a kid, you just realize that's what you do. Yeah. And so that big buildup gets really dismantled by that. But all the ruinous world, all like the despair, that's the part that I love because I'm like, that's the feeling and the vibes, the theme I want to feel in a Castlevania game. And this is the first time I really felt something like that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It is interesting because in the first game, you have the clock tower, which is just like a gauntlet of precise platforming, like fighting the enemies perfectly. And then the Dracula fight is actually quite challenging in that game. There might be a way to cheese him, but yeah, it just makes me question like the thought that they had behind this one, like where they wanted to take the series and just how different those two endings are. So I didn't get to the ending this week, but I probably won't. But it's interesting to know that that's the case.
Brian, I agree with you in that I like that idea. I just didn't feel that. Like, I love the whole narrative, and I'm down for them purposefully. If that was what they were going for, that purposeful, everything's already been destroyed here and decay, and that kind of ominous feeling as you're going back to the place where you were in the previous game and defeated. Like, I love that. And I just lacked that feeling, and so it just felt empty for me. But I'm all about that narrative approach for sure.
I just think it would have had that impact if the boss battle was actually like 3 stages of Dracula. It's actually a challenge, and you're like, that's fine. I can walk back in here and just face him again, but at least I'm getting that gauntlet at the end that really makes me feel like there's something epic happening, and that's where it kind of falls apart, no matter how you feel about it.
Oh yeah, if he had like reassembled himself and like you did 5 stages where each time he added another body part and then he like puts on the ring and then he's like epic.
Come on.
Oh yeah,
Kenny's
development
that would have
corner.
been so cool. That would have been so cool. I just took Brian's idea and shined it up a little to make it match the rest of the game. He gets the credit there.
I sense a future development duo. I don't know. There's
yeah, we'll collab on a Castlevania knockoff.
It's not worth it, trust me.
He knows. Another big issue here is the translation for me. It's just bad.
Yeah.
You don't think they possess the expertise to figure out how to do it correctly?
It always says you possess a new item.
Want some of my laurels?
And that's just one of the things. Yeah, it's rough for sure. My guess is that it wasn't first written in English.
That's a good theory. I am mad at them though for they gave the Japanese release a map in the manual and not in the US. The map, dude, would change my entire approach to this game.
Yeah.
I have a theory about that, which is I wonder if they knew they were going to do a Nintendo Power Spread with the cover and the fold-out map, and they just wanted to save it for because it's clearly like if you look at them side by side, it's a new drawing, but it's basically like a trace, like it's a one-to-one look from this unique perspective. I wonder. And by the way, if I could just say, like, as far as things aging well or not, that cover on the Castlevania cover, I think it's the best Nintendo Power cover ever because it's so cheesy and stupid, and he's holding the severed head.
Yeah.
And I love that it sparked controversy. Like, 80s parents were like, this is gonna rot our kids' brains, and I was like,
that is
the best
metal.
way. This is
dude. That
his armor is great.
It doesn't even look like a
Castlevania
render. It looks really sick. That's
There's
awesome.
armor
and you can
nipples.
That mask is sometimes on tour at some retro gaming convention,
nice.
So I saw it once.
Dude,
that's so fun.
That is a metal game. Bionic Commando is also in here. Super Mario 2.
On that copy, on that Nintendo Power, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No.
It's making me miss Tom, our old editor, had a Nintendo Power podcast, and he would just go through the different, Nintendo Power.
I bet he's done one on that one. That one seems like a pretty iconic one.
Which number is this?
Which issue?
Is number 2.
It was right at the beginning.
No
yeah.
way. September,
So he
October
definitely
of
did that.
1988.
I'm gonna go.
I bet that was very intentional. Then I don't think that's conspiracy theory level at all. That feels.
Yeah, no, you're right. They were probably like, we
It's a
need to
feeling.
get our money's worth out of this magazine.
Because of that, he's got it on hand. I love
Brian
that
just
so
whips
much.
it out. That is actually sick.
The issue of Nintendo Power.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, for those of you not listening.
Whoa, Brian! No.
Okay. Oh, right. You said this was PG. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
You missed that.
Yeah, Nolan, you gotta watch yourself. Because this game was so punishing with the ability to get through it and the lack of information to figure it out, I actually think this is one of those games that is better to play for the first time today than if you were playing it for the first time then.
Although,
and that doesn't always happen. But with that being the primary issue with the game, and today the internet exists, you can look up a guide. All of the things that would make you hate it early are are gone if you want to play this game today and play it. Disagree with me, Dustin.
However, imagine yourself in the shoes of a 7-year-old Brian playing with your brother as a young lad, having the full summer where you don't have any responsibilities tomorrow, and you're just exploring this open world that you haven't gotten in video games before, trying to figure things out. You've got a whole piece of paper, multiple pieces of paper that you've drawn out. You know what connects to what, you know what people have said, and just slowly building this out. I could imagine. Here's the thing: we don't have to guess, because both a 7-year-old and a 30-something-year-old Brian has played this game. He can tell us which is the probably better experience. Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for de-aging me. I really appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, you got to also imagine you're 7, you got all this time, but like you're in a town, you're going through the forest, and then you're grinding and you're getting kind of beat up because games are harder when you're younger. And then you find the second town, the first discovery of a town. Like that's like a big moment. You're like, oh, I'm safe. I can relax. The music changed, the mood changed. I can get new items. Like those little things were a big deal at the time. They seem really trivial now, but now when I play these games, I'm like, why is there no in-game map? Are you kidding me? Like you're making me type in a password, which by the way, you know, the disc system had a save system, I believe. So, but you know, cartridges didn't often have it. Great. That's fine. It's for the time. I can forgive those things. But yeah, there was a lot of shortcomings in this game that if they, you know, the performance and all the things we talked about, the liars and all that, those are the things that really hold this game back.
Yeah. When I picture that scenario, I see you loving it and having a great time and appreciating this game for what it was at the time, and then getting halfway through it and then never being able to beat it because there was something obtuse, and maybe, you know, you didn't have access to that Nintendo Power, and like you just don't know how to go on. And that to me is just such a problem that I'm like, yes, I think it's a better game to appreciate now that those hurdles have all been sort of deconstructed for us and the information is just out there. We can be like, okay, yeah, cool, this is a great game. I wouldn't have wanted to play it feeling like it was unbeatable in its original state.
Right. There's also a mod. I haven't played it, but I saw some of the features listed for it. If people want a different entry into this, there's probably a few, but there's one where I believe there's an in-game map, which is huge. Mm-hmm. I think they tweaked the lying NPCs to be more truthful or took them out or something like that. There's even one, or maybe it's the same one, where I think they made an intro sequence based on that intro paragraph from the manual. So you're like, oh, nice. The maiden telling, you know, Simon what to do, like, which is cool, right? It sets the stage. Most people are just not going to read about that. And those changes, I think, would make a big difference. There's also a mod where, like, you know, Simon moves more like, you know, like Symphony of the Night, which I think kind of defeats the purpose of the game. I don't think that's not the design intent. So I don't need that. But the other things sound great.
Yeah, there's also a mod that changes the coloring of the false floors. So like there are some things, and there's one that helps with the translation. So there are mods. We typically try to play it like how it was when it came out, but for those that are wanting to revisit or not wanting to suffer through some of those aged factors, there's definitely fixes for that. You know, because we mentioned it, but Castlevania is a series that did continue after Castlevania 2. There are many more. We played a few of them. In fact, Kenny might be right. This might be the single series that we played the most on the podcast. Zelda's probably close. Final Fantasy might be close.
Up there too, especially if you include like some of the tactics type games. We may have a similar total count.
Mario too.
Oh Mario. Honestly. But it's definitely one of the ones that we've spent some time in.
Castlevania series continues. There's many different ways to play Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest today. I don't think, and might be wrong on this, I don't think there's ever been a remake of Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, has there?
An official one, no.
Okay, yeah.
It is included on some of the like hardware re-releases though. You can play it on the NES Mini, I believe. And so like there are it's small.
If you want a copy of Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest for your NES, it's only $14 loose, but if you want a new one, one that hasn't been played or hasn't been taken out of the box, it's only $1,140.
Oh, yeah, no big deal.
You know that the longer we do this podcast, it's going to like double and triple prices.
You don't think it's going to come down?
No, I think it'll be a lot more next year.
Because of our podcast.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we give our concluding thoughts on the game. We will conclude with Brian's thoughts, and I'll begin by saying this was an enjoyable title. I really enjoyed Castlevania 2. I probably didn't enjoy it as the traditional Castlevania. I really enjoy that just super simple retro platforming goodness. I respect Konami and the developers for trying to do something new here while still tethering it to the old. There are problems for sure, but guys, I play all my games with walkthroughs and guides, as we've already established, so like that didn't change anything for me here, and I can't imagine trying to play it without a walkthrough or a guide in 2024, but with one, it's fun. I love the leveling. I love the new whips. I love the items. The world is okay. There are some flaws, particularly probably chiefly among them 2 mandatory bosses, one being the final boss is a joke, when the game before had some like iconic difficult bosses, and the games after do as well. So it's an imperfect game. It's a great second attempt. It's kind of, I feel, how I felt with Zelda 2, that it gets a bad rap because it's so unlike the rest of the series, but it's still a solid entry in the series, and it's beloved by the developers. Like it is a product of purpose and intention, and you can feel that here. Yeah, I really enjoyed Simon's Quest and played it all the way through this week.
Nice.
And got the normal ending because I missed it by a day.
Because you were too slow, man. For me, I was really looking forward to playing this game. I have been for some time. I almost played it on my own outside of the podcast last year. I was in a Castlevania mode. But I refrained, and I'm glad I did so that we could talk about it together. Despite all of its issues, honestly, I also had a lot of fun. It's still classic Castlevania fun, I think. They changed some fundamental things about this game, and I think it's so fascinating to try and like get in the head of the developers and just be like, why'd they want to change this? Why were they going this direction? And then they reined it back in until later on the PS1, and they went the Metroidvania route. I get people's disdain for the game. There's a lot of issues, and some of them I find unacceptable. The number one issue for me is the like gatekeeping of progress behind really stupid things, but behind some of the puzzling. That's always just a turnoff. Like, now is the time to play this game. Back then I would have quit just because I would have gotten stuck. But now, like, looking back at it, I think there's a lot to enjoy about this game. So, yeah, I didn't finish it, but I would have if I had time.
That shocked me because I
know.
Castlevania, platforming, Castlevania traditional, all those things are kind of you.
Yeah.
And you didn't finish it, so I was like,
Well, coming out of this one, I know one thing. After Brian was talking about the third one, I can't wait to play that one either. I haven't played the third one, but it sounds amazing. So, those are my thoughts.
Kenny?
Yeah, this game's interesting. I think I live somewhere in that tension a little bit more than you guys do. The game has some just baked-in annoyances, fundamental choices they made about how they were going to go about taking you on this adventure. And some of them really did get under my skin. I do think people will enjoy this game more if they're playing with a guide. You know, if you're avoiding some of that like exploration, frustration, wall difficulty. And so some of that sort of has self-resolved in, you know, talking about this game retrospectively. Overall, I don't think the game deserves some of the hate that it gets. There are people who act like this is the worst game that's ever been made, and I don't think that that's fair. But it is onerous in some ways. It's punishing in some ways, and so I think, in my mind, I think people should tread with caution. The annoyances are well documented enough that if people are playing it today and using a guide, they're probably going to enjoy themselves. but it's imperfect. We've all said that. But overall, for me, the charm, the look, the adventure, I think outweigh those frustrations. And the series is good, but it's certainly, I don't know. It's a strange game that lives somewhere in the middle.
Do you know what you think about it? You
I don't.
seem like you don't.
I waffle because
I pancake.
because there's things I really enjoy, and then there's things that I think
Sure.
were like complete misses, and it lives right in that middle space for me.
Brian, the game that you brought to the podcast, Castlevania 2: Simon's Quest. Give us your final thoughts on the game.
So for me, this is a good game with a lot of bad elements, which I think fits into what all of us are kind of saying here, right? There are a lot of bad NES games out there where you wouldn't say, oh, if you added this, change that. You would just say, get rid of that game, start over. This is not that game. This is the game where it's like, you know, if you tweak the NPC thing, if you didn't put so many enemies with the slowdown thing, and you redesign the mansions just a little bit, threw in one more boss, right? These little adjustments actually would have made a huge difference. They actually would have really added up. And so it's incredibly ambitious for the time, fairly novel. These small yet meaningful changes would have made a huge difference. It could have made it extraordinary. It really could have. It would have really like stood the test of time with, 5 big improvements. But NES games, they're under crunch. They're moving fast. We know that. I would love to see a remake of this game, or like a proper sequel to it of some sort. I don't know how you would really do that today. But I think it does get a lot of heat that is sometimes deserved, but not in the way I think some people I think it gets too much hate.
Fair enough. Those are our thoughts on Simon's Quest. But what are your thoughts on our YouTube poll? 52% of the people said yes, it's worth playing today.
Pretty high.
13% said no, go play something else, and 34% have never played it before.
Okay.
We had many from our community write in, play along with us, write in their thoughts. We'll include some of their thoughts here. From Turtle, Castlevania 2 is a pretty weird game. It features a ton of obscure mechanics and is overall less focused on platforming and more on exploration and puzzle solving, with you being meant to put together a variety of vague rumors, half-truths, and hints to figure out where to go and what to do, which is a really creative and unique system for the time. The main problem lays in the fact that localization at the time was often handled by giving the guy on the team with the highest grade in high school English a dictionary and an hour to translate everything. Other than the hints, the polish of this game is top tier for the time. It is definitely a couple of steps below the likes of Castlevania 1 and 3, but being a couple steps below some of the best games of the console still makes it a pretty solid NGP for me.
So similar to what we were all saying, I want to hear someone hate the game. I want to hear that perspective. I wonder if someone did in our community.
To be fair, I believe that the majority of our community that played along with us this week did not love their time.
Oh, okay.
With
I
Simon's Quest.
I think I remember Super Gamer Guy not liking this game.
Super Gamer Guy said, is the game we got a horrible nightmare? No. But is this really a great game either? While you might be bopping your head along with the soundtrack, you'll certainly be banging your head against the wall when falling into off-screen pits and fighting endless respawning enemies. While you might be enjoying the detailed backgrounds, you'll be loathing the cryptic progression and lack of direction. While solid controls and responsive combat options might help you on your journey, you may not find a boss to use them on until the final showdown with the vampire Lord Dracula himself. Castlevania 2 might have been exploring new territory way back when, but now it's cursed to fall just short of worth playing today. No NGP, though an outstanding spiritual successor, Infernax, might have been recently resurrected to take its place.
Huh. I don't know
Brian,
about that last
Infernax?
part.
Have you ever played?
No.
No idea.
But that's the critique I was looking for, yeah.
Compacted D said, I love Castlevania. Castlevania 2 has a bad rep. I hadn't played it before this week, and I tried it without a guide. It was pretty rough. No idea where to go or what to do. I managed to get a blue crystal. If I were to list all of the Castlevanias in order of recommendation, this would likely be near the bottom. No NGP, and definitely use a guide here. Or just watch a speed run. It did give us bloody tears, though.
That's the song that Brian's talking
that's
about.
the song.
Yeah, I love that one
That's
too.
the song.
That's the song.
Yeah, don't play this game without a guide.
No,
Unless
don't
you're
do
7
that.
years old in 1995 or whatever. Yeah. And then Keeks said, I commend Konami for trying to expand the Castlevania gameplay with Simon in an adventure featuring an open world and a day-night cycle. Konami even nerfed your nemesis, the dreaded staircases. And with great music,
Kenny.
all in 1987, I wanted to love this game. However, I couldn't get past the cheaply spawning enemies, the obtuse NPC dialogue, lack of a map, and completely missable hints and shopkeepers. You need a walkthrough for this one. I can see why this game is often missing from retro gaming conventions. No wall meat, no NGP.
No wall meat. Is there no wall meat in the entire game?
Not one wall meat.
I'm pretty sure there's not, and that's so weird,
Yeah,
right?
come
They have
on.
destroyable bricks. They could have put
It's a
some meat
staple.
in there.
Yeah.
They really could have.
There
That
was
might have
honestly
been the biggest mistake they made.
Two things that shocked me. One, no wall meat. And then two, there were no... I feel like another staple is the candles that you're breaking for hearts. And
Sure.
there's not one of those that you're
Sure.
breaking for hearts in this game.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Oh, it shocked me. Thank you. For those that played along, wrote in your thoughts on the retro game of the week, you can do that each and every week. Just send your thoughts to ngppodcast@gmail.com. Who am I kidding? None of you do that. You can also hop into our Discord channel and submit your commentary through our commentary channel there. That's where all of you do that. But either way, we'll try to include your thoughts as a part of our episode next week. For now, we are setting aside Simon's Quest, and we are randomly selecting from our Retro Master List, the game that we'll be playing for the next 7 days.
I hope it's
Randomizing-
Castlevania 3.
That would be 1 in 1,000 and the 3,000. I don't know how many.
They would
Oh,
call rigged.
Brian, what is one game you might not know if we played it or not that should be in our Retro Master List if it is not?
WWF No Mercy for the Nintendo 64.
So great. That was also
probably
one of
on
the ones
our
that we
list.
could have been talking about with
Yeah.
you, right? All right. Fingers crossed for WWF. Randomizing now. We're going from 1987 to 1988.
Oh, interesting.
And then we're going one more year to 1989.
That was stupid. So same console, I'm guessing.
It is for the NES, same console.
Okay.
It is an action video game. And this is going to bring you hope and joy because this always works out in our favor. The game is loosely based on a film of the same name.
No, bad sign.
No. We love that, right? This game has you in the shoes of a guy named Marty McFly, who goes through various stages set in 1955 in which he collects clocks in order to advance to the next level. We are, of course, playing the 1989 NES Back to the Future.
Brian, you made a face. Are you familiar with this game?
I'm I know of its reputation,
Oh,
so
no.
I'm just gonna say I'm glad you put me on this episode and not that episode. From what I've heard of that game.
Well,
Why
feel
does this
free to
happen?
play along with us, please. And
Oh,
you can,
sure,
You
yeah.
can send in your thoughts. Yeah, so hey, find a copy of Back to the Future. Play it along with us this week. Also, watch the movie.
Yeah, excuse to watch the movie if nothing else, so I'll take it.
Dustin already mentioned it, but we do have a Discord server. That's where everybody hangs out, chats about retro games and other stuff, and leaves commentary. You can do that by going to discord.gg/newgameplus.
Some of those folks take it one step further and hop on patreon.com to vote with their wallets and give us the seal of approval that they want continued retro gaming content coming to their ears every single week, like we've done for almost a decade. Jason and David have joined us this week as our newest patrons supporting the show, so thank you
Nice.
to them.
Welcome.
We appreciate you doing that. And we want to say thank you to our director level supporters, Bro Jim, Super Hypered, and Siegfried, as well as our large list of producer level supporters as well, including, bear with me, there are a lot of you, and we're grateful for it. Alex, Alias X, Marley and Antonin, Ben, Craig, Dustin's 5 o'clock, Shadow, Garlisle, Guardian, Cade, Hallex, Harold, Hey Brother, J. Robert, Jake, Joey, Jordan, Justin, Clem, Levi, Maxima, Megatroid, Miss Muso, Not Enough Dog, Retro Man, Sajin, Shane, Sasser, Scotty, Shauna, Snakematic, Psycho Mantis, The Kentucky Kid, Thomas, Tins, Turtle, Unbedavable, and Zion. We appreciate you.
You can find us on our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. The links are in the show notes. Brian, where can people find you online?
Head over to retrogamebooks.com. You can see our latest books plus some pre-orders that will start popping up. We're also at Retro Gamebooks on most of those social platforms, so take a look there. We have the SNES Maps book that's being printed right now, and then it'll be a 3-volume thing, so you can stay tuned for the later volumes. And then there's also a book we just recently announced that's being written by Nadia Oxford, so you can start to learn details about that pretty soon as well.
Guys, I cannot overhype this enough. The books are so sick.
Yeah,
That
they look
map
so
book
quality.
is
And
so
what am I supposed to do if I want all of them? My birthday's coming up,
Yeah, you just wait for Christmas is what you do.
but I can't get all of them.
Are you asking us to buy them for you, Dustin? Is
My
that what
birthday's
this is?
coming up.
Okay, got it.
I'll send you guys some free ebooks to at least get you
No, I
going.
want the
How about
physical
that?
thing. They look good.
I know,
say,
physical is where it's at.
He wants
I
to
know.
hold it in his hand.
Y'all,
One
they're
last
so
question
sick.
for you, Brian. What is your favorite book that you've published that you've done?
Oh, that's a hard one. I mean, even though Rygar is so niche, it was like a really big challenge
It's a
for me.
passion.
I actually
Love
picked
that.
it. I picked it because I knew no one had written about it. Like that was the goal, is to do something
Yeah.
that like I want to produce things that are for me, but also things that like haven't been tapped into before. I don't want to recreate the same coffee table books that are already out there. So it was just a big challenge working with an editor to like get it right and do a lot of research. So it just has a special place in my heart, even if it's extremely niche.
Yeah. Well, you can listen to us on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our episode artwork was created by our friend Dave. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play Back to the Future. Until then, I'm still wall meat or the lack thereof.
I'm still that flame whip.
I'm the video game Maps SNES edition.
And who are you, Brian?
Hi, I'm Brian.
And this has been New Game Plus.